At the inception of the class, we were introduced to the legal battle between several Native Americans and a group of scientists over the 9,000-year-old remains of the Kennewick Man. The objective of this presentation is essentially to explore race, Indian identity, cultural assimilation, origins, and social evolution in order to achieve a deeper historical understanding of the topic that has stirred much debate and controversy. According to Thomas David Earth, the central idea of skull wars can be stated rather simply. Although limited parallels do exist between the fight over the Kennewick bones and the evolutionist creationist struggle, the critical question is, who gets control of the ancient American history? Governmental agencies, the academic community, or modern Indian people? I am here today to explore the arguments and further validating the point that the scientists should have the stronger rights to the Kennewick Man remains. Based on skull wars, and I quote, "The discovery of a skeleton in the Columbian River with an arrowhead in its bones led to an excessively confused lawsuit over the treatment of the skeleton and a state claim by scholars that this skeleton should rewrite the history of the Western Hemisphere. It has been an amazing experience to watch the discipline throw and caution the winds and announce wild speculations as proven advances in science. The question of importance is essentially wrapped in the idea of who gets control over the remains of the Kennewick Man, and why should government rule in favor of the native Indians or scientists. According to Thomas David Hurst, not only does the U.S. Constitution protect freedom of expression, the scientist argues it safeguards the right to gather and receive information. If the Kennewick skeleton is locked away or reburied, the American public is deprived of potentially irreplaceable information about its past. In accordance to the book Skull Wars, we will examine the view of Thomas Jefferson, an advocate of democracy, and how the dead should be treated. Jefferson is further of the belief that the native Indians have no right to the Kennewick Man's remains. The American public is deprived of potentially irreplaceable information about its own past. In accordance to the book Skull Wars, we will examine the view of Thomas Jefferson, an advocate of democracy. We will further look at how he perceived how the dead should be treated. Jefferson is further of the belief that the native Indians has no right to the Kennewick Man's remain, and I quote, "The dead have no rights." Nonetheless, the 9,000-year-old skeleton seemingly suggests that the Kennewick Man was around long before the Native Americans, who were said to have been around for over 10,000 years. As Skull Wars would theorize, and I quote, "Scientists across the country screamed foul. This is one of the oldest, most complete skeletons in the Americas. If the Kennewick Man indeed has many Caucasoid traits, how can an Indian tribe claim his remains?" Ladies and gentlemen, it could be that I make reference to the Skull Wars considerably. No matter how this study comes out, The scientists argued because the bones are so ancient, they rightfully belong to the American public rather than any specific interest group, as stated in the book. In quoting from Skull Wars, Shatters and other scientists countered that Kennewick Man could not be adequately affiliated with any living tribe, and as such, most likely not within the Indian people at all. To permit one tribe, or perhaps a single tribe, on the fact within to permit one tribe or perhaps a single faction within a tribe to veto scientific study, he claims would violate the rights of all Americans. Additionally, on a 60 Minutes television program, several correspondents, Leslie Stahl quoted Shatters as believing that the tribe fight against further testing of Kennewick Man is based largely on fear. A fear that if someone was here before they were, their status of sovereign nations and all that goes with it, treaty rights and lucrative casinos, could be at risk. Skull Wars states that all disagreement over racial categories sparked the ugliest controversies in the Kennewick Man affair. As the late Eric Wolfe wrote, race remains a source of demonology in the country and in the world of anthropology. As a major obligation to speak reason to unreason. As stated in the Skull Wars, my opponents would probably hold the view that the native Indians should have exclusive ownership of the Kennewick remains, and I quote, "Native people across the land try to recapture their own language, culture, and history. They are increasingly concerned with recovering and taking control of tribal heirlooms and human remains." Skull Wars also asked a pertinent question. Why is the burden of proof placed on Indians to defend their beliefs and practices, when similar burdens are not placed on other religions? Ladies and gentlemen, I am thinking and I'm asking the following questions. Is there any benefit in scientists studying the remains of human inhabitants, be it traditional or contemporary? Does scientists have documentation of precious possessions that will one day be used in confidence and the knowledge of generations to come? Or should all aspects of one's heritage and descendant be given exclusive ownership of the relics of the past, and more importantly, the opportunity to make their own evaluations? In closing, I urge you to scrutinize the answers to the above questions. Examine your belief or convictions about who gets control over the 9,000-year-old remains of the Kennewick Man. One thing is for certain, and I quote from Skull Wars, the battle over the Kennewick bones is about control and power over America's ancient past. If archaeologists should surrender the right to study the ancient human bones and artifacts, will the community have to fear continual censure by the religious beliefs of just a few? Should this happen, the mainstream archaeologists' views on American origin will no longer carry the clout of authority. ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with a popular quotation from the book Skull Wars by Thomas David Hurst. And I quote, "The multicultural tug of war over the Kennewick Man raises deep questions about how we can make the past serve the diverse purposes of the present, Indians as well as whites. It also challenges us to define when ancient bones stop being tribal." My name is Nicole Ellis, and this is my stance on the 9,000-year-old remain of the Kennewick Man. Thank you very much.